Okay, so let's talk about damage control. I'm not going to talk about Oliver Ekman-Larsson in this video, not Tucker Poolman, not Hamonic or Schenn. Let's go over Nate Schmidt. Because Schmidt's a guy that the Vancouver Canucks had a really weird and strange relationship with. A year ago, they acquired him for a third-round pick, and everybody was like, oh, this is a steal, you know? This is a legit top 4 defenseman, a guy who had 30 points or whatever with the Vegas Golden Knights, and he was consistent at rushing the puck and leading the offensive transitions and all that. And we got him for a third because he had this big contract and the Golden Knights needed to free up the money on the right side to get Alex Pietrangelo and all that, so they were on the market for getting rid of one of their defensemen at a big cost, and they sent him away for a third. What a great steal for Vancouver. And we thought it would be great. You know, I made so many videos talking about how this trade was fantastic, how it was so good, how it was the best thing the Canucks had done in a while. Okay, we got rid of a pick, but still, we're getting a legit top 4 defenseman who can put up points and all that. And then the season happened, which wasn't really all too great. I mean, Schmidt was good when he was really good, but the bad moments with Schmidt were really, really bad. The turnovers and whatnot, he didn't really produce all too much. The Schmidt that we got in Vancouver was not the same Schmidt that we saw in Vegas, and even though there were flashes that Schmidt did exist, just the entire thing with the pandemic, the illness, the entire team getting infected, the chemistry not being there, not having the time to build relationships with your team and all that, it just didn't really make for a good fit with a lot of the new guys that the Vancouver Canucks brought in. So, a few days ago, they traded Nate Schmidt to the Winnipeg Jets for a third-round pick in 2022, so it wasn't really that much of a win or a loss. It was a pretty, lateral move. You acquire the same thing you got rid of when you got this Nate Schmidt player in the first place. So on paper, it's a really lateral move. And I know a lot of Canucks fans would go out there and say, oh, we could have gotten more. This guy's worth a lot more than a third. It was a steal when we acquired him for a third a year ago. So us getting rid of him for a third-round pick isn't really the best value that we could have gotten for this guy. And I get it, it's tough to really conclude where things could have been because the entire team sucked this year. Schmidt wasn't the best version of himself this year. But at the end of the day, you still have to evaluate things the way that they were. This guy was worse value-wise today than he was a year ago because he had a worse year, the entire team sucked around him, and you were able to get the same return in the first place. So, either way, Vancouver traded Schmidt, it's a done deal, they signed Tucker Poolman, they signed all these other guys, etc. But what we're focusing on here is the relationship. Because before Nate Schmidt was traded to Winnipeg, we had all these rumors coming about from the NHL insiders saying, oh, Nate Schmidt might not want to be here. There's this overarching idea that he might be unhappy with his time in Vancouver. It was actually Elliot Friedman who brought this idea up all those months ago, saying, yeah, I'm hearing rumblings about these guys. Nate Schmidt, he might actually want out. And eventually, with more detective work, more insider information leaking out, we had word that the Canucks were trading Schmidt and they were trying to get a deal done because while Nate Schmidt apparently wanted a change, apparently the Vancouver Canucks also felt like a change would be necessary too. Then we had the entire thing coming out, oh, Yannick Hansen is on Sportsnet 650 talking about how if a player doesn't want to be in your team, you trade him. That's it, plain and simple. You don't want players on your roster that don't want to be there. Which is why they ended up trading him to Winnipeg. Here's the little kicker, though, because Thomas Drance came out and he said this. Here's a quote that I wanted to read to you from Drancer himself. Nate Schmidt initially did not want to waive for the Winnipeg Jets. However, the Vancouver Canucks threatened to bring him back, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back. Oh my goodness, assuming this is true, assuming that this is exactly how it went down, that's absolutely terrible, man. Imagine that. You're talking to a guy who does not want to be on your team, and that you have established would rather be a better fit elsewhere, and you say to him, okay, we've got a trade in place with Winnipeg, all you gotta do, Nate, is accept it. You gotta waive your no move, and we'll trade you, you'll get out of here, you'll get what you want and all that. And he's like, no, I don't want to go to Winnipeg, it's fine, I'd rather go to another team, so if you're gonna send me to Winnipeg, yeah, I'm not gonna waive, I'll stick around, I'll wait till you guys send me to another team that I like more. And if this quote is true, if Vancouver goes out there and he says, okay, well, It's either Winnipeg or here. We're not going to send you anywhere else. We can't get a deal done anywhere else. No other team is going to bite for the price that we're asking for. It is only Winnipeg that you can go to. If not Winnipeg, you're staying in Vancouver. And then apparently Schmidt's like, oh, well, if that's the case, I'd rather go to Winnipeg than stay here. Even though I didn't want to go to Winnipeg in the first place, I'll go there if it means not staying in Vancouver. That is absolutely terrible. Like, I don't know how bad things have to get for it to get to this point, you know? To the point where Vancouver is absolutely on your last list of desires, where you would be willing to accept a trade to a place that you wouldn't really have wanted to go to for the next few seasons. Nate Schmidt's going out there making $6 million till 2025. That's a long, long time to be in a place that you would not want to be in. And if you're going out there and saying, oh, well, if the alternative is Vancouver, I guess I'll go. Things have had to have gotten really bad. Now, there are a whole bunch of rumors going around as to why that is. Lots of speculation I've seen about older players and younger players, and the older guys getting ticked off at the younger guys or whatever because of protocols and whatnot, and that's not really anything I wanted to explore here. The fact is, we had it happen, the trade was made, Nate Schmidt was apparently not happy here, and the Vancouver Canucks were willing to get rid of him. Well, Nate Schmidt had his interviews done with the Winnipeg media immediately after the trade, and the big quote that everybody is talking about, especially on the Vancouver Canucks subreddit here, is this right here. I was never asked or talked to last year about a trade to Winnipeg. There was never a conversation about, hey, would you waive to go to Winnipeg? And I said no to, Nate Schmidt says in a press conference. And for this one, Schmidt says, I want to say it was kind of the same thing. On Monday, a lot of things were coming in, and I just said, I need a day just to talk to guys and get a feel for everything. Eventually, it was reported that Paul Stastny, a former teammate with the Golden Knights, was actually in contact with Schmidt, and he says that Paul and I had a real good relationship the last couple of years. I still stayed in touch with him this last year. He's an awesome guy, a straight shooter. He said you really get treated well with the staff and the organization. So apparently there was a lot of convincing done by Stastny to get Schmidt to get on board with the Winnipeg Jets, and ultimately it's one of the reasons as to why he ended up waiving. And so my thought process was, okay, well, if Paul Stastny's the one that's convincing him to come to Winnipeg and ultimately waive, where does this quote come from where Brandt says that Schmidt would not waive for Winnipeg until the Canucks threatened to bring him back? Well, here's a comment from our Canucks kind of explaining the entire situation here. Jim Benning was asked about this yesterday too, and he said that it's true, he never talked to Nate directly, but he was in constant communication with his agent 3 to 4 times a day in the past 2 weeks. And he said it's his agent's job to explain to the client the options that he has. This is an easy out for Schmidt. He can make the agent look like the bad guy here. No reason to make your new team hate you, in the same way like he never asked for a trade from Vancouver. And so wrapping up the entire Nate Schmidt thing, the entire falling out that we had with this guy, with our organization, it is really strange to see the different pieces of information come about that apparently he didn't initially want to go to Winnipeg, eventually said yes, and then came out to the media directly and said, yeah, I was never asked or talked to last year, and I said no. If it was done by proxy, I guess he's telling the truth here, where instead of it being Benning talking to Schmidt himself, it's Benning talking to the agent, and the agent relaying the information and the situation to Schmidt instead. Because if you talk about it that way, then yeah, he never really directly said to the GM, I guess, that he didn't want to go to Winnipeg. And at the same time, you know, there's no reason for him to even admit that because he's going to a new team. There's no reason to sour your relationship with the new fans and the new organization by saying, yeah, I initially didn't want to play for you, but after they threatened me to stick around in Vancouver, I had to say yes because I had no choice. Like, that kind of thing is just so strange to me, and it's kind of a very strange and weird way to end off what was ultimately a failed experiment of a player here in Vancouver. I said this before, but I think Schmidt is going to do fine in Winnipeg. He'll probably be okay. If he plays better than he did here in Vancouver, then hey, the Jets are getting a pretty good defenseman for a third-round pick there. Although the contract is pretty steep, though, so the Vancouver Canucks getting rid of that to open up the cap space to sign Tucker Poolman, of all people, seems to have been, at some form at least, progression. Is it really, though? I don't know. Tucker Poolman, 2.5 by 4. Huh, terrible contract right there. Talk to me in the comments what you think about Nate Schmidt and the entire falling out, the weird ending off of the relationship here. I hope you enjoyed this video. Rosén 99. And bye.